G'day viewers, Phil here. I want to talk today about something that took 10 years of my life. Before I go any further, I want to be clear about what those 10 years actually were. This journey has been my entire life, not just 10 years, but those 10 years were the period where I was actively trying to fix a problem I didn't even properly understand at all. I was asking for help. I was seeing professionals. I was taking medication, but neither I nor the people trying to help me were asking the right question, especially me. For a long time, I used to think it didn't take 10 years to treat me, it took 10 years for someone to listen. That's only partly true. The truth is more subtle. I was being listened to, I was being treated, I just wasn't being understood. And neither was my brain. When I first saw a psychiatrist, ADHD was never mentioned, not once. In fact, at that point in my life, I'd never even heard of ADHD. I didn't even know what it was. I'd never heard of the term. What was talked about were things like depression, anxiety, trauma, alcohol. Had plenty of problems with that. And to be clear, those things were real. They were really real. I wasn't imagining them at all. But they weren't the cause. They were the smoke, not the fire. And at the time, I had no way of knowing that, because when you've lived your entire life one way, that way just seems normal. In earlier episodes, I've used the word fog, but I want to be more precise now. I've been doing a lot of thinking about this, because what I lived with didn't come and go. It was constant. It wasn't fog. It was more like mental suffocation. My favorite analogy would be emotional sedation. That's where I think I sat with it. A lifetime of, what else would we call it? Muted consciousness. I was functioning, but only just. Thinking, dimly thinking. And here's the cruel part. I didn't know I was impaired, because that state, that heaviness that I was living in, was all I'd ever known. Only now, after months on the right treatment, do I realize how dense I really was. And I was dense. Every week, as my mind clears a little more, I look back and think, wow, I had no idea how bad I was. And I think that's one of the parts I want to really emphasize in this series, is that I just had no idea how dense, how vague I was, until I started to realize it in the last couple of months, in the last 4 or 5 months. Now, one of the hardest parts of undiagnosed ADHD is this. You don't know the questions to ask, because you know nothing about it. And if you don't know the questions, how are the professionals going to give you the right answers? They can only surmise. So I kept asking for help over and over and over and over. I kept getting medication for depression. I kept getting medication for anxiety. I kept getting medication to help me stop drinking. And those medications, as far as I'm concerned, were rough. They made me feel horrible. So I'd take them, and then I'd stop taking them. And they didn't really help anyway. I still kept drinking. Like I said, some of them helped a little, some of them didn't help at all, and some of them, like I just said, made me sick. But none of it touched the core problem, because no one was looking there yet. Now, I need to talk about alcohol here, and I'm going to expand on this in future videos, but I'll just give you a brief overview of how alcohol affected me. Because for me and for many people with ADHD, addiction isn't random. When your brain struggles to, I guess, regulate dopamine and serotonin, you go looking for relief. Alcohol provides that. Lots of other things provide that, but in my case, alcohol provided that. Not long-term belief at all, but temporary quiet. The cost of that was enormous. I lost time, I had broken relationships. I built friendships around drinking. Not a good idea. Romantic relationships built around drinking. Even worse, bad idea. And a general malaise in my life that just settled over everything. While all this was happening, mentally, my body was paying the price. I had fatty liver disease most of my adult life. Doctors warned me, Phil, again and again, your liver tests are high, at times dangerously high. And my response back then, yeah, sure, whatever. Not because I didn't care, because I didn't process it. I didn't understand what was happening. If someone says to you, your liver function tests are really bad, you can't see it. They don't take your liver out and go, see, I told you. My weight climbed to as high as 120 kilos. That's over 260 pounds. I was way overweight for me. I felt consistently and constantly unwell, but I just pushed through. I just kept going. But that's when the physical damage finally matched the mental chaos. Looking back now, those 10 years weren't wasted, but they were misdirected, and I'm certainly glad I spent that time, because if I'd have given up, I wouldn't be sitting in front of you right now, let me tell you. Almost the right treatment, almost the right explanation, almost the right help, and almost, let me tell you right now, and I'll tell you this for nothing, almost is exhausting. I wasn't sure clarity was even possible because I had no idea what clarity would even look like or feel like. How would I know? I suffer from ADHD. And then finally, the right lens. I looked into it and it looked back at me. Not decades, not years, 6 weeks. 6 weeks of the correct diagnosis, 6 weeks of appropriate treatment, 6 weeks of understanding my brain with the right professionals around me and the right advice. And suddenly, things made sense. I know, right? Why am I telling you this? Well, I'll tell you why. I'm not doing this for me. I know my story. I've lived it. I'm doing this for the person who's watching, who feels vague, who feels exhausted, who feels sick, who's just sick of being them, who feels like life has just never worked while people around him or her are just succeeding and going forward, having nice relationships, getting married, and doing all the great stuff that they want to do. I'm not suggesting you do that, but what I'm saying is calmness, seemingly organized, not chaos. Just as I said, if you feel like life has never worked, I just hope this helps even one person. If I can help one person ask the right questions sooner, then it's been worth it. So, as I've said in the past, this episode, it's not about blame. It's about what happens when the right question isn't asked and the quiet damage that it can do over a lifetime. You're not broken. You were misread, and it's not too late. So, if you like what I've been telling you in this series, and do you think it might help someone? Firstly, share, because you never know, you might change your life too. Wouldn't that be cool? Please subscribe and like the video. That helps me make more videos and help more people. And as I said, this is Phil. I'm from Australia. Cheers.